All Digital Radio Network.
Want to go out to a movie? Or maybe watch a movie at home, but you can't decide on what to watch? Head on over to freemovieinformation.com. The movie trailers and descriptions for thousands of movies, both current and older, are all in one place. freemovieinformation.com. Thousands of movie trailers, one location. freemovieinformation.com.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the All Digital Radio Network. Whether you're a brand new listener or a longtime fan, you've probably noticed that we have quite a lineup. Do you have a business, an organization, or a group that needs global exposure? Have you been priced out of the traditional radio market, or are you seeking a new, innovative way to reach your customer base in this advanced digital age? Radio advertising is one of the most inexpensive and effective ways to get your message out to the mass public. We have advertising packages for almost any budget with the same quality you've come to expect from the All Digital Radio Network. Give us a call today at 312-324-0180, or you can email us at advertising@alldigitalradio.com. Let the All Digital Radio Network broadcast your business message to the world crystal clear.
Did you know that the federal government gives away over $400 billion in grants each year to private citizens like you? Go to findthegrant.com. These programs require no credit check, no collateral, no cosigner. What you need is the correct information found at findthegrant.com. If you're a U.S. taxpayer, you are entitled to your slice. Get the information to get started today. www.findthegrant.com.
You are listening to the All Digital Radio Network.
The virus has completely devastated over 150 of the world's major regions and is spreading rapidly. At this point in time, we know of only one method of killing the creatures, or to destroy the brain. Be on the guard of any loved ones who may have recently been in any sort of contact with the infected. And if you find yourself out in a threatening position, please do not hesitate to act. Again, because this is not a test. This is not a joke. We as a species are overwhelmed. We are outnumbered.
Walker Wednesday starts now.
Oh my God, they're everywhere.
What a way to start a show. And here we go. Welcome, everybody, to Walker Wednesday. We are the Walking Dead Fan Talk Radio show. Tonight we're going to be reviewing episode 510, which is, that would be season 5, episode 10, and it's entitled Them. And with me tonight, none other than the good Wendy King.
Hello.
What you been up to this week, Wendy? Did you have to go, rescue your own little road trip rescue mission, didn't you?
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you have kids. You always have to go rescue them. So, yeah, I did a little rescue trip down to New Orleans, which is always fun. And, that was pretty much my week.
Well, Wendy, she lives right where The Walking Dead is filmed.
Yes.
So she could run into these guys at any minute just going down the highway at 4 o'clock in the morning trying to find a truck stop to drink coffee at. Which is her favorite thing to do. Also joining us this week, once again, Mr. CB Snow.
Good evening, Locke.
And you're living up to your name this week, aren't you?
Oh, jeez. I had to shovel my roof today. I'm not kidding. I got probably a 4 or 5 foot drift on top of my house.
Good Lord. We did I think we got cut off last week before you could say hello to a very special person. So let's get that out of the way right at the top
beginning?
Of the show. Yeah.
Hi, LJ. Never listen to this.
This is better than the one we used to curse on
That's
all the
true.
time.
Well, yeah, you got a point there.
We might have a lot of new listeners, so explain to everybody that listens to the other shows knows who LJ is, but we might have some new listeners, so just tell everybody.
LJ is my adorable, now almost 4-year-old grandson, who always gets in trouble, and usually he and I end up getting in trouble together.
And if there were walkers out in Massachusetts running around, he would put on a helmet and crush them all in the nads.
Yeah, if that would work, there would be no walkers left.
Now, like we said, we're going to be talking about episode 510. It's called Them, and I'm really baffled at the name because they were going with these short, little cute names, and then last week we got that long one that really didn't mean anything. This one was directed by Julius Ramsey, who aesthetically followed the same template that Greg Nicotero went with last week, only no flashbacks, no acid trips, no premonitions. They basically kept us. These are the kind of stories I actually like. And it's not the in-depth emotional crisis that everyone was having, but I like it when they have to go scavenging for stuff. That's my favorite part of this whole series. To see them go through a Walmart or that one liquor store or a store that the helicopter had crashed on. I love it when they have to go scavenging for stuff because it gives me ideas of things I might have to do if the world ever comes to an end.
That's right.
But, that's really, half of these movies, you get a good 15, 20 minutes of them just doing stuff like that with 28 days later, 28 weeks later. Oh, and there's going to be a 28 months later. They're starting to work on that right now.
Yeah, I saw the ads for that.
Yeah, which those aren't zombies. Those are people that were infected by like a really, really, really bad case of rabies. And it was basically rage. And they got...
It's zombie-ish.
Yeah, they got to starve to death, though.
It's the same. It's pretty much the same genre.
Oh yeah, that and World War Z, which were they're climbing all over each other, making towers out of each other. I didn't really care too much for that one, but they're going to be doing another one of those too, hopefully without Brad Pitt or Pitt or whatever his name is. I never cared too much for that girl. But we always have a dramatic opening scene with The Walking Dead, and this one I didn't know who this was.
I didn't either. Extreme close-up.
The extreme close-up, she's so dirty. I'm not trying to be racist or anything, but you couldn't tell she was Caucasian or African American, so you really couldn't tell who was having a good cry in the woods, but it turned out to be Maggie. And this is something that I don't think Bob started it, but Bob's the first time I noticed when they just go and have a good cry in the woods. They just got to go and hash one out. And we had a couple of good cries in the woods this week.
Yeah.
And one thing that really struck me about this, I know they don't take the walkers seriously. But
not anymore.
The walker sneaks up behind her. This walker, remember in the earlier series or the earlier seasons, they were afraid to be scratched.
Right.
Because they were afraid the scratch would turn them. And she just let this walker wrap its entire arm around her. As long as she wasn't bitten, it's apparently the scratches don't do anything anymore.
Well, he was sort of like stuck behind the tree and everything and really couldn't get to her. And she was just so nonchalant about the whole thing.
And she was trying to have a good cry in the woods.
Yeah, and this guy just got in her way.
But
so he got sort of hung up in the branches, and he's trying to reach through and stuff. And she just said, screw this.
Basically wraps her. She wraps the arm around her, just sets herself up for a scratch. So apparently they're not too worried about that anymore. They may revisit that again. You never.
Yeah. When did they find out that the scratch didn't cause anything? Was that when they were with the guy at the CDC? I wonder.
No, because when Rick and Shane out, they couldn't find. That's when they first started noticing that they didn't have to be bit or scratched to have turned, because they couldn't find bites on those guards. That one little mini prison thing, where they were going to leave that one guy, and hopefully he wouldn't come back and bother them.
Yep.
But then they realized, you could die of anything and come back from it. But this little opening scene kind of set the whole feel for their current surroundings. Obviously, they were in a drought. The entire countryside was, depleted of wild game. They couldn't find a pond anywhere, as seen by the dried up frogs.
Although if you look at the flora around, I mean, everything looked pretty green. It didn't look like it was all shriveled up.
You've never been down south, have you?
I've been to Connecticut.
I mean, we can go
That's
through
south.
Yeah, we can go through droughts like that. I mean, this whole episode just screams south. I mean, you could be in the middle of a drought, no water anywhere, and then all of a sudden 20,000 inches pours on you in an hour and a half, which was seen by that storm.
Well, I was wondering what the significance was of all those dead frogs.
Yeah, they were trying to show how.
The first thing that came to me was Moses and Pharaoh and the curses being visited upon the Egyptians. But I mean, I didn't see locusts. Didn't see rivers of blood.
There was a.
There's a cicada.
Yeah.
Skeleton on the tree.
Yeah, I was wondering if Daryl was going to eat that later because he ate the worm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no tequila, nothing.
Wow. I don't know. I think you got something there, CB.
Yeah, this was a very religious episode. It had religious overtones, especially faith and miracles being visited upon them, which we'll touch on a little bit later. But this little group, it was Sasha, Maggie, and Daryl. They kind of come back onto the road. The van hadn't run out of gas yet, and they come back, and, you know, Maggie's in her depression, Sasha's in her depression, and she says, I wonder how much longer we got. And I don't know if they said 6 miles or 60 miles.
60.
Yeah, okay, because I read that somewhere. And she said, that's not what I meant.
Yeah, I knew that wasn't what she meant. I knew when she said it.
I mean, that was just
that was kind of telegraphed.
Yeah, that was kind of obvious that, you know, how much longer can we go without water? How much longer can we go without food? And those are the basic things you need for survival. You've got to have shelter. You've got to have water. You've got to have food. And obviously air. Air was about the only thing they had. But, you know, after the van runs out of gas, it's amazing they can't find another car anywhere that's got gas left in it.
Well, some of them, I suppose, if you get in an accident or you turn or something happens, probably a lot of the cars are left running.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know, they get those giant pileups on the interstate and those kind of things, and I bet you the cars are just still running.
And notice they're always on the state roads now. They're not on the big interstates.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they did that coming out of Atlanta in the second season. And they found that big pile up, and they did find the big water truck, and I don't think they ever used the water out of that.
Yeah, and that's when Sophia got lost.
Yeah.
They were on the interstate.
So I guess they're trying to stay away from population centers, and they're going down these old state roads, but the problem with that is, you know, maybe a farmhouse every 20 or 30 miles, but that's about it.
Well, the thing about the smaller roads, of course, is you don't have the giant pileups because those all occurred when people were, you know, streaming out of the cities using the major roads. So it's easier to drive along the smaller roads than it is along the highways.
That's true. It seems like they went downhill an awful lot, though, in this episode. It's like, I didn't know the whole trip from Richmond to D.C. was downhill.
Huh.
That could be a political joke in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, how are they in relation to the Appalachian Mountains?
I guess you would be coming away.
Coming down.
Yeah.
Be coming
North
away
Carolina
from
is hilly, so you're up and down constantly. I'm not really sure about Virginia. I mean, that could be right, you know.
Just a guess.
From the Appalachians to the Shenandoah Valley, that's where it's tapering off.
Mm-hmm.
And then D.C. has to be at sea level. So I guess that could be. Yeah, they could actually have studied on that one. But the van runs out of gas, and then we get to see a lot of interaction between the characters. I mean, these guys were cutting each other up in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
They were upset. They were all upset. Everybody was upset, and they were taking it out on everybody else.
And Daryl's trying to get away to have his cry, but Carol won't let him go. She's got to, you know, go and comfort him and give him Beth's knife and
a kiss on the forehead.
Yeah, everybody went crazy about that.
Yeah.
Said it was a gateway kiss.
It was very motherly.
Yeah, I was going to say it was Mom.
Yeah, I'm not. Everybody was reading into that. They've been trying to hook Daryl and Carol up for seasons and seasons now. So you never know how that's going to turn out. And then, little Carl, he's hitting on Maggie, but Glenn better watch out.
Yeah.
She gets the music box. And then probably the worst one of all, when Gabrielle tries to small talk Maggie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't work.
I mean, he's probably hanging on to his faith by a thread, and she just serves him. You were supposed to take care of your flock, and you hid while they died.
Yeah, let's not pretend that didn't happen. Yeah.
That's the first time I've ever felt sorry for Gabrielle. Because I don't like his character. I do not trust his character. I know there's something up with him besides what we already know.
Now, is he in the comic books?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think there's something up with him, too, because that whole leaving his flock, and that's, I don't know.
He's just not a very brave man.
Yeah, his the actor that plays his character was on The Talking Dead afterwards, and he said, "Yeah, he is cowardly."
Yeah.
And he talks just like this, even his character. He said something really innovative as far as an actor. He's tasked to play this character, and this character has to be like this. He refused to get an apartment inside Atlanta.
That was funny.
And hang out with the actors because he was the outcast. You saw that?
Yes, I did. That was pretty funny.
So, they'd all invite him out to drinks. No. He wants to be the out. And then he finally explained it to Andrew Lincoln why he was doing it. And what did Lincoln say? Lincoln
said he understood that he was, an actor and getting his motivation and things like that. But if he stays in the show much longer, you're going to move into town, right?
Apparently, they're all living in Atlanta.
Well, you would think that, yeah. I mean,
we got to go to Atlanta.
Oh, you and Stassi want to go to the convention in Miami. Orlando. CB, they actually want to go to the Walking Dead convention.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm. All the characters are going to be there.
Instead of being Trekkies, are they called Walkies?
Probably. Probably. They want to go down there and just hang out. I'm going to give them a go cam so they can get recorded interviews with the stars.
It's in October.
We can play them here on the show. Now, when you want to survive with The Walking Dead and, you're out of food, you're out of water, you're out of energy, and we said this a couple of weeks ago, why don't you put so many of them out of their misery? Well, there's only so many swings you can take before you just don't have a swing left in your arm. And you mentioned it before the show, CB, that they were being followed during half the show down this highway by these walkers that were slowly catching up to them.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting. I know where you're going with this, but I just wanted to interject this. I was thinking about it because they had this very powerful shot down the highway where you see the group of survivors in front, and then behind them, I'm going to say maybe 200-300 yards, was probably a group of walkers that was about twice the size. And I was thinking if they had pulled the camera back to, say, a quarter mile or a half mile away, and you were looking at those two groups, I don't think you could tell them apart.
Right. Hard to tell the difference.
Mm-hmm. Both just shuffling along.
Don't you think I think they were trying to show that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was, I think, to me, it was obvious from the camera angle and everything that they were trying to show that juxtaposition.
That was one of my favorite scenes for this show. Yeah.
There was a picture of that scene. What you're talking about in the show, they were all scattered and walking. But they took a publicity shot where all 13 of them lined up from one side of the road to the other.
I saw that. Yeah, it was a good picture.
The internet went crazy. It went nuts because Judith was not in the picture. Oh. Where's Judith? Oh. Where's Judith? And everybody started commenting back. She took the picture. Don't worry. She's okay.
Good.
But, I mean, it's this show's got a life of its own. I mean, the fans themselves, they just go nuts afterwards. But they came up with a brilliant plan. It's walkers off the bridge. Let's play. And you got to give it to them. The leader steps up first, which is very, true to form. Rick does the first one, shoves him off. Then, of course, Mr. Macho has to do 2.
Yeah, big dude.
Yeah, Big Abe, he's got to do 2. And then Glenn does his. And then my favorite one was Michonne. She don't even touch the dang thing.
Yep.
She just kind of moves, and it flies right off the bridge. But then we've got Sasha, who, very important to realize. Sasha, this came up, I believe, on The Talking Dead. She lost her link to her past, which is her brother. And she lost her link to her future, which was Bob, several episodes before that. So this is a lot of what we're looking at in this episode is why do we keep on living?
Yeah, well, she's pretty negative and nasty in this whole episode.
And like they said, she was almost like she was trying to get kicked out of the group, because if, Rick would have gotten bit if Daryl hadn't showed up and, pulled that one away and pulled his, I want to say his toupee, but it was his real hair and scalp that came flying off the skull.
Yeah, that was pretty gruesome. I didn't even notice that until I saw the Talking Dead and they showed it in slow motion. And I was like, oh, he's cut his hair.
Yeah, so he got scalped. And so if Rick would have gotten bit, would they have kicked her out? No, they can't kick him. Like Maggie's, the actor that plays Maggie said, you can't kick anybody at this point. They've lost too many. So that's just not even an option anymore. You have to bring the ones back that are still with you and give them a reason to live. But she goes out and she wants to kick everybody's ass. I mean, she just wants to start a fight.
It was basically what Tyrese did when he just waded into a group of walkers and just took his weapon and was whacking them all over the place. It was the same idea. I don't care if I die. I'm going to take a whole bunch of them with me. As a matter of fact, I want to die.
And they're brother and sister. They were raised by the same supposed NFL player coach. So they were raised under the same mentality. So it makes sense they would have that same. It's hard to say, or it's easy to say you're not like your sibling. But when you're put into such an extreme situation, you probably are more like them than you would believe because you were raised in the same environment. And it's kind of unique that a writer would kind of latch onto that and show it. What I liked was, there are other zombie-type movies where you can get infected from a drop of blood. And she cut the walker's throat and cut Abe's bicep at the same time. Did you notice that?
No, I didn't.
I knew she cut him.
Yeah, that one she turned around and cut the throat. I mean, in one fluid motion, she cut through the walker's throat and cut Abe.
Oh, wow.
And didn't say anything. And then later she ends up, saying, I'm not your friend.
I'm not your friend, yeah.
But I think Wendy brought something up. Apparently Sasha, the actress that plays Sasha, is pregnant. So they're hiding her baby bump extremely well.
Wow. I did notice that. But you have to really look. I mean, she's got the baggy kind of camo vest on.
Actually, that might have been Beatrice that brought that up.
Yeah, I don't think it was me. Okay, but I did notice that.
I get all you white girls look alike. I get confused. But yeah, when she was on The Talking Dead before the break, which was months ago, she was filming while pregnant, so they're having to hide that baby bump of hers. So that's got to be rough out in that heat, because you heard the actor that plays Gabrielle talking about how he's out there. I think his actual quote was he was sweating like a hostage. Because he's got that collar and black suit on, and apparently he lost his jacket this episode, which he was very grateful for. But then we get up to that little mini traffic jam, and we've already seen Maggie get the music box. That she says later in The Talking Dead reminds her of Beth, because it's a little blonde girl dancing and the music's playing. And then we see the kidnapped walker.
Yeah.
Gotta wonder, there's got to be a story behind that.
I know.
Yeah, I'm assuming we'll never see it, but yeah, but it's just gruesome. I mean, you're kidnapped, you're thrown in a trunk, something bad happens, and you're left in that trunk until you die. I mean, how long does that take?
And then turn That was pretty intense. I was shocked. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty gruesome.
That's one of those things we may see a webisode. A lot of the little unexplained things that are interesting like that, you'll eventually see a webisode. So you'll see somebody that robs a bank and crashes their car, and then all of a sudden the zombie or the walkers come out and get them. I'm not allowed to say zombies. Mm-hmm. I'm not allowed. I don't allow myself to say that because these are walkers, and then they turn. Because there are a lot of interesting webisodes. If you go on the AMC website, you can actually watch a little 2-minute skits, and you have to watch like 8 or 9 of them. But it actually shows how that, I think we talked about this before, how the half-eaten woman that Rick saw when he was pedaling the bicycle, mm-hmm. how she got there. And there are quite a few of them. But for me, this showed their frustration.
Well, the thing that it got to me was just another loss of humanity, where Maggie opens up the trunk, there's a walker. I mean, these things used to be human beings, and they used to, out of compassion, put them out of their misery. Now it's just like, geez, another one, and she slams the trunk down.
And to hear, I didn't think about this when I was watching the show, but to hear the actress that plays Maggie, and I'm going to have to write these names down someday so I don't have to keep saying the actress that plays her, but she said she reminded her of Beth, and that was her motivation for the scene. But to me, what I got out of it when I watched it for the first time was they're so tired. They're so frazzled. They're so out of energy. She slams it, and then she can't get the key to open back up. And it's almost when you're totally exhausted and you can't even get the key to get into your house and you just want to give up. You got that feeling that, this is too much. It's 110 degrees outside. I just ran 30 miles to get home. My car broke down or whatever. Can you imagine the situation they're in? And her frustration just showed she was about to blow the lock off, which would have probably brought walkers from, 50 miles around. And fortunately, Glenn steps in and kind of saves the day, which is the only good interaction you really see between Glenn and Maggie in the last few episodes.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah.
That's what happens when you get married.
That's right.
Well, you two should know I'm not been there yet. Don't plan on it. Then we've got they just kind of take a break by the side of the road, and Abe finds some booze since they can't find any water. Let's dehydrate some more.
Well, he's thinking, what the heck?
Yeah, he don't really care. No, he's got to be the alpha male, and he can't really be the alpha male, so he's got to do what he can to stand out. And then enter stage right. The wild wolves that we were promised from last week's episode preview. 2 Dobermans, a German Shepherd, and what looks like, I don't know, a collie or something, some kind of mutt.
Those are scary-looking dogs.
And they say they use barbecue sauce to get that look off.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. And I know Maggie was, Lauren, that's Maggie, by the way, is Lauren, was talking about her dog almost made the cut, except her dog was white. And if they put barbecue sauce on a white dog, you'd never get it out.
It would take weeks and weeks of bathing it.
Yeah.
She said, no, thank you.
Yeah, really.
But, this is what we were promised. This was our big build-up. This was our big, shock and awe from last week. They're going to have to fight off packs and packs of wild dogs. And five-shot Sasha kind of put them all down in like a second flat.
Yep. And then it was barbecue time.
It was barbecue time. That's what I call miracle number 1. They got their food, which, in fact, was Glenn's favorite childhood dish.
Good one.
I saw a meme this week with Rick going, "Who knows how to cook dog?" And it's got Glenn running at top speed.
That's good. Well, do you think those dogs were the wolves that were referenced on that graffiti from last week?
I think we're getting teased. I think we're being led down a path.
Well, they weren't wolves.
Yeah, they weren't wolves.
If from the prior episode, if they meant dogs, I would have think you'd say dogs.
Wild dogs or something. Yeah, that's true. It did say wolves. Okay.
Yeah. So.
And that could be referring to a gang that called themselves the Wolves. Like I mentioned last week, this is 18 months to 18 to 24 months into the zombie apocalypse, or the walker apocalypse. And these dogs are out there for 2 years. You know, even a domesticated dog will go feral, and they will breed, and, you know, these dogs look like they were more than 2 years old. But, you know, they'll go wild, and they'll breed, and then the ones they breed will have never been domesticated. And you'll be running into packs and packs of wild dogs before long.
Yeah, I remember, did you ever see the television show, and I can't remember what station it's on, but it was basically a world without humans. If the human race just suddenly disappeared, what would happen to the Earth?
Yeah, like Chicago would, you know, the buildings would fall and
right.
Bush.
But
I think
one of the things they talked about was dogs and what would happen with dogs. And basically the smaller, nice little, yappy dogs that people like to have would basically be food.
Oh, good.
And the dogs that, like what they had, the Dobermans, the German Shepherds, those kind of things would start to interbreed, and they would all eventually interbreed with wolves, and that genus would basically reappear as the dog instead of the specialized breeds that we have now. So it looked like they were sort of on that way.
Oh, I'm sure they take that into consideration. But these dogs are never going to get there. They just became lunch.
Yeah, they became shish kebab.
Oh, and it turns out that the actors got to pick which dog they wanted to eat. They could either have lamb or they could have veggie sausage. And that's what they were actually eating. Except for Noah, who was looking at the little Duke collar. So apparently one of those was a domesticated animal at one point because he had a collar that said Duke.
Aww.
And it kind of looked like the Duke Blue Devils logo, too.
Yeah.
But,
well, that was one of the questions, too, on the Talking Dead was what did it say? I got that one wrong.
I got to do that one day because I get all of them in like a split second. But, you know, I'm never online live when they're doing it. I'm watching it like hours later.
So at this dog barbecue thing, is that where Gabriel takes off his collar and throws it?
Yeah, he's right there in front of Maggie, who basically, you know, burned him. So he burns his collar. He loses his faith. This kind of reminds me of that story. You ever hear the story about the old coot, and there's a big flood, and the sheriff drives up to him in a truck and says, come on, partner, it's time to go. There's a flood coming. He said, no, the Lord will take care of me. Then, you know, floodwaters rise, and he's up on his roof, and the sheriff comes back in a boat, said, come on, old timer, it's time to go. He said, no, the Lord will take care of me. Then he's up like the last few square feet of his roof, and the sheriff comes by again on the helicopter. He says, come on, old timer, it's time to go. He said, no, I keep telling you, you ain't got to worry, the Lord will take care of me. So the water rises, he drowns, he's dead, he goes to heaven, he goes up to God, and he goes, Lord, I thought you were going to take care of me. He said, well, I sent a truck, I sent a boat, and I sent a helicopter. What else do you want me to do? And this is what I was looking at through the whole episode. They needed a miracle of survival. And for survival, you need food. And they got the dogs hand-delivered to them. Mm-hmm. And that was miracle number one. And it was right in front of Gabriel's face. And he's looking at it. He even commented later, you know, what have we become? We're a group of people that are eating dogs. No, you're a group of people that are eating. Mm-hmm. You're surviving. And he didn't see the miracle right in front of his face, and he's the holy man.
Wow.
I still think Glenn, you know, chowed down on like most of that. And we saw a lot of the characters with their interactions, and they're showing frustration. You know, Glenn and Maggie are trying to find a reason to live. Excuse me. And Glenn and Daryl are fighting over Daryl. You know, he feels so guilty and burdened that he won't even take water. He wants to probably kill himself with dehydration. And then, Abe and Sasha. You know, Abe reaching out to somebody. I mean, good God. And Sasha goes, I'm not your friend.
Yeah, he offered her some of his alcohol.
Yeah, that would probably tick me off, too, if I was dying of dehydration. But then
That's a thought that counts. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. But then, I don't know. What was it? Was it Scotch or bourbon or Boone's Farm? Who knows what it was?
I don't know. It was brown.
Yeah, really. Then Daryl goes off on another one of his excursions, and he finds the barn that they eventually go to. He has a smoke. He has a nice burn. Kind of like rubs a cigarette out on his hand and has a good cry in the woods.
So why does he put the cigarette out on his hand? Is he trying to
feel?
Yeah, he's trying to feel something.
Wow.
You know,
I
he
think I'd feel
shut
that.
off. He shut off his emotion so much. I mean, he's sitting there.
He's done it before too, because that's an old scar.
True.
Wow.
Yeah, you got to remember they've hinted at his past and how he was abused as a child. I don't think it was sexual abuse. I think it was just battered. His father would just beat him. And, that leaves you with a hard shell. You put that hard of a shell on yourself, you can't feel anything at all. I mean, you can't, break loose. And that actor went out there and the look on his face, I mean, just his facial expression alone told a story all in itself. The first time he went out and that time, I mean, he just could not, break down. And then he rubs that cigarette out and he has a good cry in the woods. We're back to a good cry in the woods.
Now, what are his tears for? For Beth? Just for utter despair? I mean,
I don't think he's utterly despaired. I don't see him being one that is going to give up. I think it was all for Beth.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
Okay.
And he wants to be able to cry for her and mourn for her, but he's got that rough exterior that nobody can break through, and he puts up those shields for a reason.
Yeah. So all this time he hasn't mourned, and somebody had told him earlier, maybe it was Carol, it's been 3 weeks, or no, it was Rick, 3 weeks since Atlanta, I think they said.
Yep.
So he's finally gonna, okay.
I mean, and who knows what 3 weeks would be like without radio, without television, without having to go to work, without a schedule, just watching the sun come up and go down and fighting for your life. Who knows what 3 weeks does to your psychosis?
Yeah.
I would think it would seem like a very long time.
And he wasn't your typical 9 to 5 go to work person. He was basically a juvenile delinquent redneck who probably didn't have much of a consistent life, but still, you would be able to tell what time it was. You'd be able to tell when it was Friday night, when it was Saturday night, But, in this world, there's none of that. That's got to be disorienting as anything else, as having walkers come at you. It's got to, wear you down as much as, having to run constantly. But
I don't know. I mean, I think when people take a vacation and they don't worry about if they don't have a schedule, you can lose track of days and time very quickly. At least I can. But that
it's
because
going to come back. You're going to get back to it. You're going to get back to your routine.
Yeah, the older I get, the closer I'm not coming back to my routine. One of these days, it's just going to be the last day, and I'm going to say, have fun, everybody.
But Daryl gets back from his little cry in the woods, and they're standing there looking at the water.
Yeah.
In the middle of the road with
suspicious water.
Yeah. From a friend.
Yeah, from a friend. I don't know.
Well, that would make me. It must be okay if it's from a friend.
Well, Eugene thought it was.
Eugene didn't care.
But
I let Eugene drink it.
A lot of people thought the same thing, Wendy. Just let him have it.
Talking Dead. They said, if anyone's going to take a sip, why not let it be Eugene?
Yeah.
And of all people to smack it out of Eugene's hand, Abe, who
still protecting Eugene.
Who basically beat the snot out of him. But they're sitting there, and they know they're not going to drink the water because they can't trust anybody. And that's going to be the theme going, I think, for at least the next episode. They can't trust this new group. And apparently, we'll get into that at the end of our show tonight, that there is a new group out there and that they've sent a recruiter. But for right now, they're all still thirsty. They got this water in front of them, and that's got to be tormenting. And then the rain starts. And there's miracle number 2.
Yep.
And it's a lot of rain.
Yes, it is.
That's the kind of rain we get down here. Oh, I guess they're in Virginia, but
yeah.
Where are they? Yeah,
it's
but
the
we
same.
get that down
it's
here.
The same
too.
here. It's hot all day, and then at 6, 7 o'clock, or 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, you get a thunderstorm that comes down like that every single day throughout the entire summer. That is a typical Greensboro, North Carolina, and probably everywhere else around here. You just get a downpour.
Yeah, but for people who are dying of thirst, they seem to be just sort of looking at it and say, oh, this is nice. It's finally raining. And the first thing I'd do is like turn my hat upside down or something just to have some. I'm thirsty. I want some. And then finally people started, holding out their little plastic water bottles with that little, 3/4 inch opening at the top of it.
Yeah, they weren't too concerned about collecting the water. I did notice that. I thought when they went for Rick's hat and then they used it to cover Judith with, I thought they were at least going to let that drip into the to one of the water bottles. Yeah, you'd think they'd have at least a 5-gallon bucket somewhere now. But it was the worst wet T-shirt contest I have ever seen. Everybody that doesn't have a shirt to wear all of a sudden had triple padded bras. The only nipples I saw were Abe's.
Oh, that's sad.
Go back and look at it again. Abe has got some, probably inch-long poking little nipples out of his little tank top there, his little wife beater.
His wife beater. And this whole time, Maggie had on that white T-shirt, but no, okay.
Nope, because I looked.
Nothing.
Okay.
DVR'd it, went back, looked 3 or 4 times to make sure. Not a thing, just Abe poking out. But this is, for survival, you need food, you need water, you need shelter, and this is water. This is like, God just said, here's your water. And I think even Gabrielle said, Lord, I'm sorry, I doubted you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Let me go back and get my collar.
And then as soon as he says that, here comes the tornado or the bad thunderstorm.
You want some water? Here's some water.
But then they all make their way to the barn that Daryl had found earlier, and that's when CB, you nailed it, dude. You got to take this part because this is all yours.
Well, it was interesting because to me at least, when Rick started the story, he's talking about his grandfather in World War II and surviving through World War II. And the first thing that came to my mind is, did you ever see the miniseries Band of Brothers?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there was a scene in Germany where Lieutenant Spears is talking to Private Blythe. And Private Blythe is sitting in his foxhole, and he's scared to death because the Germans are 100 yards away. And they're going to have a huge battle the next day. And Lieutenant Spears says to him, the reason that you're scared is because you have hope. Once you understand that you're never making it out of this alive, you'll be a fine fighting soldier, and all war depends on it. And I'm hearing that going through my mind as Rick is telling his story about his grandfather in World War II, not being able to talk about people being killed and killing Germans because he basically had to make the assumption that he wasn't going to make it through. He was going to be dead, and that was the only way to go about it. And then Rick sits there very quietly in this dramatic pause and says, "We are the Walking Dead." And I was like, hey, I got it right.
Yeah, that's what you were saying.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense to me that he said that. And of course, Daryl got all upset at that point.
We ain't them.
Yep, we ain't them.
We ain't them. No.
which I think snapped him out of his moroseness and self-pity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It did.
That was a climactic moment. Everyone was waiting for that.
Well, it's it was like Roosevelt at his fireside chats is what it was.
And
Yeah.
They talked about this on The Talking Dead. You don't see Rick open up. And Andrew Lincoln even commented in a clip that they played on The Talking Dead, Rick never gets a chance to sit down and share himself. So
lead. He was leading then. That's what he was doing.
Exactly. Well, he was trying to inspire. He was trying to lead. And, what got me is even though Daryl didn't like it too much, Daryl needed it, like you just said. And when they asked for an open poll on The Talking Dead, was this a good speech? It was 91% said yes.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's the way you got to think about it. They're at war. They can't have that hope because that hope is going to give them the fear, and the fear is going to kill them. Exactly what CB just said from the Band of Brothers reference.
So this was the turnaround for the group.
Yeah, they had basically hit bottom. They're hiding in a barn in a storm, and everybody's miserable. And it was a very good pep talk, I thought.
Well, you get the pep talk, but then it's put up or shut up. Did the pep talk do any good? How do you prove it? Well, you fight for your life, and what happens next?
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden,
walkers show up.
The barn crashers, and it looks like there's probably a dozen or 24 of them.
In the middle of that storm, that was so spooky and so scary. The lightning lights up the sky, and Daryl looks through, and they're all standing there.
I think there was some significance with the order in which they...
Oh, there was a huge significance to that. You got that right.
Yeah, one by one.
Yeah, but who was it? I mean, that's the thing, Wendy. It was Daryl, who was,
on the outskirts
off the edge,
and saw him first.
Then I think the next one was the next one Sasha?
I believe it was Sasha.
Sasha, who was another one who was totally against everything and all upset. And then Maggie, who was another depressed, morose one. So the three of them were up there holding the doors, and slowly everybody else.
And Rick and Michonne and Glenn, who are pretty much holding on and holding everybody else on, they jump in. And it was kind of, I think, funny that Gabrielle pointed out he was about the last one besides Carl who had to put Judith down first.
Yeah, so Carl puts Judith down in the dirt. What if a walker came in the other side?
That's what I was thinking. It's
Carl,
funny how
what you going to do, just hold the baby.
It's funny how we as viewers think about this stuff. Oh, Judith gets pushed down. Oh, what if somebody comes in through a crack in the wall? We're thinking that.
Yeah,
but the writers aren't.
Wendy, you know this. You got to have had children.
She would be an appetizer for one of those walkers.
Yeah.
Poor Judith.
and it's interesting because you have the juxtaposition of the door is probably what? How thick? Maybe 2 inches thick?
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's plywood. You could see through it.
Right. You've got The Walking Dead on one side trying to push their way in, and you've got The Walking Dead on the other side trying to hold the door shut. And what separates them? Only a couple of inches separates them.
Yep, and see, that connects back to the scene on the road. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They keep showing this, that there's not a whole lot of difference between these two groups.
Uh-huh. Very interesting.
But then you get I think Gabrielle had a very good point that he was one of the last ones that showed up, and he probably only helped because he couldn't see another way to escape. Normally, he's the escapist. He's the one that will find a way to hide. He's the one that will find a way to cowardly exit to save his own skin.
He who fights and runs away lives to fight another day.
That's his motto. But there was nowhere to run. There was nowhere to escape. I don't think there was a back door to that place. And he just had to sit there and he had to fight with them. And that showed a little something that he was able to get up and do that. But we see our miracle number 3. Now, we've already seen the food. We've already seen the water. And nobody, this is completely my theory. because I didn't see this anywhere. I'll go and read articles, and that's where I come up with my theories.
Mm-hmm.
I'll steal it from somebody else.
You're a good man, Locke. You're a good man.
But you've got for survival, you need food, you need water, you need shelter. You had the first miracle with the dogs that gave them food. The second miracle with the rain that gave them water. The third miracle, the storm, actually protects them from their shelter. And it was so odd because this looked like a dream sequence. Like the whole thing with the door was a dream because you see Maggie wake up. But apparently, when we walked outside later, we saw all the walkers that had been torn up by the tornado.
Yeah, I thought I thought it was a dream.
But it would have had to have been somebody's dream.
Yeah.
And Maggie just woke up and she wasn't shocked or anything. So, she was waking up after she went to sleep after the walkers were, sucked up into, sent back to Kansas.
Yeah, the thing that bothered me about that was you've got large trees taken down. Nothing hit the barn, and the barn didn't look like it had any damage whatsoever.
Yeah, that's what I keep saying. The miracles were right in front of them.
I just thought it seemed unlikely that the barn would escape damage.
Sometimes you can have blind faith, and sometimes your faith can blind you. And I think, especially Gabriel, his faith was blinding him. He wasn't seeing the miracles that were right in front of his face. And then, what are our two problem children for the whole episode? Because this episode was really about Maggie and Sasha.
Yeah.
And if you had to put your finger on it, and Daryl to some extent. But we all know Daryl's going to survive, but he was the third one on there. But they go out, and they get to see the damage. And then the music.
That was a good scene.
The music
Did you
box.
see the guy dangling from the tree?
I didn't notice a dangler. I saw the one with his arm broke 5-6 different ways. That's the one I noticed.
There's one that's impaled high up on a branch in one of the trees.
I saw that one, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a tornado had picked him up.
These things can still bite. You got to be careful. It's like, stepping on a bumblebee or something.
Yeah, but they don't care anymore. I mean, it's obvious that if a walker isn't within tooth distance, they're not going to bother.
Yeah, but you fall and trip and fall right on one and he bites you. You still got to be a little careful. But they go out and their music box won't play, and then all of a sudden there's Aaron. And I think that's what we're going to see from...
Walks around the corner. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I know. And
Like, what they call
immediate,
him.
stark contrast. He's clean shaven. His
Like a
hair
Land's
is
End model
clean.
is what they called him.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
Land's End,
he didn't even get messed up by the tornado. The tornado didn't even bother him.
And then compared to this group, it's such a ragtag. They're muddy. They're dirty. They're tired. I don't know. That was pretty shocking.
This goes to the comic book. And what I keep saying all along, they could tease us because they know that we know where the comic book is going. They could lead us down one road and then just pull the rug right out from under us. Or we can follow the story of the comic book. And if you don't want to hear what happens next, go watch American Idol right now or something. But Aaron is a recruiter, and he's a homosexual character. And they promised that they were going to introduce a homosexual character, I believe, the last Talking Dead before the mid-season finale. He is a homosexual. His partner is Eric, who will die sometime later but should be alive right now, with the Alexandria Free Zone. And that was a society set up by a guy named Alexander. I think it's just a coincidence that it's near Alexandria, Virginia. Mm-hmm. And he became like the governor. And they deposed him, and he was killed, and this other man took over, and I can't remember his name right now, but he was a congressman from Ohio. And he was a good leader, but apparently not a strong leader, and eventually I think Rick would take over the Alexandria Free Zone. And at least in the comic book, they stayed there for years and years. And they fought Negan, who we mentioned last week, and other villains who would come and try and attack him. But there were, if not dozens, hundreds of people in this little community.
Wow. And so you think Aaron has been tracking them, was following them. Like, how did he know Rick's name? He said, "Take me to your, can I speak to your leader?" Is Rick, right?
They're going to have to explain that. You know, he's had to been close enough to hear them.
Right, and for Daryl or somebody who hunts and tracks, how would he have
unless
not
he heard
been
them over
noticed?
unless he heard them over the walkie-talkies that they used to talk on.
Oh, yeah.
Or ran into him in some prior situation, in some prior season, sort of tangentially.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this group would have been in Richmond the whole time and nowhere near Georgia. But we have to wait and see, because we don't know if they're going to stick to the comic book.
Well, I'm sure one of Rick's things is going to, first thing's going to be, how do you know my name?
Yeah,
that would be mine.
Apparently he's got a flare gun to signal everyone else. And if you saw the clip from the Talking Dead, you know, the guy makes a good point. He's like, you know, how many others are there? You're not going to, it doesn't matter. You know, not that it doesn't matter how many people there are, but you're not going to believe anything I say, whether I say, you know, there's 0 or there's 2 or there's 2,000. You're not going to believe me. Why should I tell you? So he's obviously had dealings. This is almost like First Contact in Star Trek. He's almost had dealings bringing other people. If he is a recruiter for the Alexandria Free Zone, like he is in the comics, he's had to go in and do this, you know, several times, if not dozens of times.
Well, he hasn't been killed yet.
Yeah. And he's got perfectly dry, clean clothes.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably got a limo, you know, with champagne sitting around the corner. Take them all to the free zone.
I don't know. I can't wait to see where this goes.
Yeah, I'm sure that they've been followed off and on by, if there is a large group out there, they've been followed off and on. It would make sense. Not that you'd know it, not that they've shown it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think they even mentioned on the Talking Dead, they're not going to believe this guy. They're going to think he's another cannibal.
Right.
He's another governor, and they're going to fight him. And they're going to.
They haven't run into nice people.
I know.
And it seems like they're doing a lot of running and a lot of fighting in the next episode. You can never tell. That could be 30 seconds of them running into a herd of walkers, and that be that.
Right. The previews for next week does look like very action-packed, but I think at one point Rick says we're under attack or something. I don't know.
No, they got to have some action to it. This was kind of a lull. You notice they won't keep the action going 3-4 episodes in a row. They have to take a little break every so often just to let you pause and regroup and, you know, deal with the humanity.
Yeah, well, I mean, just watching them chop zombies' heads off for an hour every Sunday night, you know, the show wouldn't last that long. You've got to have human characters developed. You've got to have human interest stories.
Well, that's what keeps so many people listening. You did say that the ratings were down this week. They were against the Saturday Night Live 40th anniversary, but still they're up there. I mean, they're still huge for cable.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you'll get a better idea once all the we're in February sweeps month right now. So, I mean, this is when they make the advertising revenue decisions for the upcoming season. So everybody sticks their best stuff out there. So, I mean, once we get through February and into March, I think you'll get a better idea of what the actual popularity of the show is.
That is true, and we're just about out of time. We got about 20 seconds left. You want to say hello to LJ again?
All right. Hi, LJ. Come up and visit sometime.
And we'll see you here next week at 10 o'clock for Walker Wednesday. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Happy birthday,
night.
Locke.
I'm not going to sing.